Welcome to week 2 of our Lenten study here in Lent 2025. Now, the question we're looking at is how do we respond in a world that seems kind of ass over tea kettle, quite frankly, when our greatest political ally has turned into an antagonist? I won't quite say enemy yet because we're talking governments and a lot of leadership that is just a little out there, a little whack. We're not quite sure how it's going to all play out. But we, as a nation that is essentially being attacked, are full of a lot of people wondering how we respond to this when some of the responses are beyond our control. The government can do certain things, God forbid, but the military, when called upon, will be able to do certain things. But how do we as people respond to this? And I was asked where in the Bible we look to see some kind of putting a frame of reference around our experiences, our concerns, our anxieties, our worries, and where can we find that strength? Last week we looked at some of the minor prophets, and we saw about grounding ourselves, about kind of putting ourselves in a place, because the worst thing that can happen in chaos is that we're kind of all floating around, because that's the goal of chaos, is to discombobulate everybody. But by putting our feet firmly planted, just kind of taking a deep breath, just stepping away for a second, having a good look at what's going on, we are better able, better prepared to respond. This week we're going to look at some kind of responses. And primarily, we're going to look at what passive response and what quiet response can look like. This does not mean weakness. It just means not allowing those who want to cause chaos have the final word. We're looking at Jesus' Sermon on the Plain. Now, most people are more familiar with the Sermon on the Mount, which is found in Matthew. Sermon on the Plain is found in Luke, and while there are a great deal of similarities, Luke's version is shorter, more to the point, and talks hardcore issues, whereas Matthew is romantic, it's poetic, it certainly calls for us to have deep introspection, but it's not a call to action in the same regard that Luke's Sermon on the Plain is. One of the first distinctions is that Jesus stands among the people. He comes down from where he's been, and he just talks to people. And as someone that's my methodology for preaching, I can tell you there's a different response. When you're standing among people as opposed to looking down on people, people just feel like you're connecting to them, you're talking to them. Jesus is one of the greatest preachers as far as we know, one of the greatest preachers of God's message the world has ever seen. See, he learned this. It's a method that he knew about how to connect to people, and it's one that we can take advantage of when we are trying to study a little bit more about what he's really teaching us and what we can internalize to make things a lot easier for us, and a lot more engaging, where we can actually have conversations with people where we're feeling on equal footing as opposed to being talked down to or put into a power structure. So it starts in Luke 6, verse 20. And right away, Jesus starts going into the blessings and the woes. There are 4 of each. He talks about the blessing for the poor, that they will have abundance later, those who are hungry, they'll have a chance to eat. Those who are crying, they're going to be comforted. Those who are despised, they're going to be appreciated and rejoiced. Now, too often, the Sermon on the Mount has had a very superficial reading to it, a very light reading to it. Still, the establishment, the historic church, the institutional church, wants to have a control over how this is interpreted. But everything in this is actually rather subversive. And when we're talking about the benefits, we're not talking about this lifetime and then after death you'll have another experience, which is often how it's interpreted, that this is your experience in this world and in heaven it'll be something else. Heaven, by the way, when you break it down, the only actual translation of it means the home of the gods. It has no reference. We often correlate it to sky, but that was decided long before people actually knew how to fly. So there was an assumption that gods lived on high, up above on the mountains. That's a very Greek idea, but also it's why so many temples throughout the Middle East were put on higher places, including the Temple of Jerusalem. It's because of this belief that you're closer to the gods. So heaven can be sky and something above earth, but when it all gets boiled down, it simply means home of the gods. So when we look at the blessings, it's not that anybody has to wait until another time period, another after death, another world of experience. It's bringing heaven now. It's bringing folks to understand that what is possible now. With as we go through all of these suggestions about how to passively resist and subvert what's going on, it shows us that it is completely possible for the world of blessings to be experienced right now. It's a choice we make to not do it, but it is possible right now. And one of the ways Jesus talks about is the poor. You know what? There's going to be stuff for you. It's the things that you're struggling with now, you're going to have those issues met. And then he turns on the rich folk and says, woe to you. Those of you who are rich and full bellies and laughing and lauded, people respect you, they want to quote you, do all sorts of things. Well, your world is going to be inverted too. Not just that those who are struggling are going to have something better, but you're going to have to humble yourself. Jesus talks about the rich, they've already had their rewards. Does not say that the rich are going to replace the poor. That's a very important point, because we work in a mentality of either or. The Bible doesn't. The Hebrew culture didn't. When we talk about the poor being full, Jesus says you're going to know hunger. It doesn't say they're going to starve. It just says now you're going to actually have to feel what other people have felt. The thing is getting the balance. Those who are struggling are to be brought up, but those who have so much are going to be brought down. It's not that they're going to be replaced. It's they're going to be more evenly balanced. And this is a theme throughout Luke. We hear it first in the Magnificat about the poor being held up and the lowly brought down. So it's all about adjusting what's going on. So Jesus sets the stage that is what's going to happen. Definitively. There's no question about it. There's no equivocating. That is what's going to happen. And then he starts to talk about the actions. And this is where the subversion and the passive stuff starts to kick in, where we have to really look at it. Because again, a really superficial reading has been the preference to most of church history, because people were easier to control with a superficial interpretation. There's a Charlie Brown comic that says you don't give people the education they need to resist you. And that's what's going on in the Bible as well. There is resistance in these words, but the institutional church does not want to see that resistance aimed at them. So they have long interpreted these words as something other than what the scripture is really getting at, something other than the theme of Luke. So we get started right away with love your enemies. Plain, very simple. This is not passionate love. This is not complete acceptance love. This is not dismiss their faults love. That's not the kind of love we're talking about. This is simple agape. We want our enemies to have a decent life, much like we want for ourselves. This is not a hard sell when you really break it down. We want to make sure that the people who are causing us the greatest trouble manage to have their basic needs covered. That does not preclude us wanting them to stop what they're doing. Just means we want them to just enjoy the abundance of life that everybody should be able to enjoy. And by loving them into this reality of shared benefits, shared resources, hopefully, if they're paying attention, they will start to change their behavior too. It has been known to happen. Maybe not as often as we'd like, but it has been known to happen. Also, praying for our enemies. Again, what does that mean? How do we make that connection? There's a long rebuttal, I guess, a pushback against the concept of thoughts and prayers. Rightly so. They've been used as saying that this is all we've got to respond to is with thoughts and prayers and the job is done, whereas so many people know it's just the beginning. But the thing with prayer that's really profound is it changes. And this is physics. This isn't just me speaking as a theologian. This is me as someone who has read a few scientific papers on the matter. That physics is now able to measure people in prayer. And they can see that energy being sent. So that people, the more in prayer we are, the more in depth and dedicated to that, the energy of the group grows, and that energy has the ability to be sent. This is not just a simple word. This is potential for change. It is one accessible to all of us. We can pray. This is one of the first, along with loving, these are the first two acts of standing against something awful. These are almost ignored in their ability to be part of the resistance, be part of subversion, but they're there. And they're accessible at any point in time. And I really encourage you to work on those. And a prayer might be as simple as, I can't do this, or please help them see better. That's prayer. That's simple as it is. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It doesn't have to be long and eloquent. It doesn't have to be done in any particular style or body pose. All it has to do is something saying to God, please help this happen. So those are your first two actions. Love and prayer. Then we get into the story of turn the cheek. This is one I actually quite enjoy debunking, and I have on my regular website a few times. There is so much around this story that has been used to keep abused women and children in an abusive relationship. Maybe men too. The stats aren't there in the same degree. This is not confirming or condoning abuse. It's not. This is a statement of resistance, of undermining those in authority. See, back in Jesus' day, they had a culture that was known as the honors culture, that they had these rituals of how you interact. We've got some of it here still in our culture, but it's not to the extent that historians figure it was 2,000 years ago. And owners or masters or company owners, the rich, whomever, had the right to hit those they thought were lowly or those who they were employing and they weren't behaving properly. But it was a ritual slap. It was the back of the right hand, I believe, across the cheek, and that was it. And the person who was being slapped had to take it. That was part of the honor exchange. They knew their role. This is simply a matter of putting someone back into their place. So Jesus says, when someone hits you on one cheek, give them the other. That's the act of subversion, the act of resistance, because by turning the other cheek and saying, okay, you know what, second chance, you were shaming the person who had done it in the first place. If you'd just taken the first hit and walked away, that's fine, that's done. But by giving the opportunity for the second hit, you took that power away from them. And this is what Jesus was talking about. It was not giving in to abuse. It was actually standing up to them and saying, all right, fine. Hit me again. Let's see how the society now views you. And if you take a really, really close look, you're seeing a lot of that type of resistance in the world. Yeah, we have an overabundance of maniacal demigods, it seems, but we have that level of resistance standing up as well. You think you can shut me down? I'm just going to stand here and watch you and make it an embarrassment for you. It's not hurting me in the least. Then we have the story of taking the shirt. That's the same kind of idea, because the average Hebrew person, man, wore two cloaks essentially, the undercloak and the overcloak. Well, if the rich person or the power person demanded the first cloak, you're basically right down to your one covering. You give them the second cloak, you've made yourself naked. Again, that exposes you, exposes us who have made ourselves naked, but it shames those who demanded it. And those in power demand respect. They want to feel the power. They want to feel beholden. There is nothing more effective than making them feel shame. We're seeing that too. If you look at the news broadcasts, you look at other places, when you can shame a person who wants power over you, it does something. Not only does it encourage other people to step up and resist as well, but it takes their power away. One of the great examples through history, actually, was the Black Panther movement in the 60s. Now, it's been dubbed as a terrorist organization and whatever else, but if you look at some of their training, some of their actions, there's a video I've seen every now and again, or pictures at any rate, where there's this young woman often, where they're blowing smoke in her face and yelling at her, doing everything to get her react. See, here's the thing. When we react to aggression by yelling out or responding or telling them to F off or whatever, they've won. They know now how to rile us, how to get us off that base that we were talking about last week, where we're grounding. That's the chaos that wants to get us unmoored again, unhooked. So we're just floating around, not knowing how to respond. So that's an emotional reaction that they're wanting, and they're going to keep poking and poking and poking until they get it again. Resisting, subversion, standing up, action is actually not acknowledging that. A lot harder than it sounds, but that's part of what is going on. That's the whole turn the other cheek, give the other cloak. It is resistance. Then we move on to verse 31. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Again, this goes all the way back to agape that we were talking in verse 27. When we are going to resist, the last thing we want to do is become copies of that which we feel is inappropriate. We don't win that way. We don't influence anybody. Treat others as we would like to treat you. This does not mean not resisting. This does not mean just kind of lying down and letting them walk all over us. That was never part of the expectation. But be the example. Again, Canada right now is a masterclass of how to respond and still be very respectful about it. And it goads those who want to see us in chaos or in anger. It's going to continue to do that, because those who want to have chaos can't really grasp the concept of treating each other as equals or with respect. It doesn't work in that. And again, this is not about subversion. Submission. It's about subversion and making sure that we are undermining the powers of oppression in ways that they're not prepared for. See, a bully understands bullying. A bully does not understand peace and love. Gandhi showed us that one. As problematic as Gandhi was in so many ways, this is something that he actually showed us. More people who do it, the more people who get engaged in this, the better we are. So it doesn't do us any good, as rewarding as I'm sure it feels to boo something or to post nasty memes or to say horrible things, it doesn't do us any good as people who are trying to resist, because that means we're becoming like what we're trying to resist, and we don't want to do that. So again, another form of action is just to reply with kindness, not submission. Kindness. It's a very different thing. Jesus goes on very quickly to tell, what even sinners love the people who love them, help the people who help them. We don't want to be like that. We want to be more generous, more understanding, more expansive in our understanding of, or in our relationships with what's going on. To do good things without expecting anything in return. Again, this is not accepting the awful things that happen. It means responding in a way that is not representative of the garbage that was shoved at us in the first place. Do not judge is where Jesus comes now in verse 37. By the way, all of this is considered to be a whole bunch of sayings, a whole bunch of teachings put together. That this is not exactly something that Jesus said, like flat out all through, but that these are very important lessons that are gathered all together because they show someone how to respond in the face of an oppressive government, which the people of that day would have experienced with Rome. It's a way to stand up for who you are and live in a culture of oppression. So don't judge. Don't be the ones. This is about our ego. This is about their ego. It's about making sure that we do not invert the situation where we become just as limited and unaccepting as some of the folks we're trying to resist. That means that we recognize diversity, equality, and inclusion, and accessibility. That means that we're here for people who feel that they're on the outside. When people are having emotional times with something, that we're here for each other, because we'll all go through that. I went through it just this afternoon, and I had to reach out to a friend who buoyed me up. That's what we do for each other. That's a method of subversion as well. There is nothing that oppression likes more than separating the people involved. So stand up, don't judge, build community. And then he talks about being aware. Can the blind lead the blind? No. Be aware of what's going on around you. Do not put yourself in a hole, as tempting as that may be. This is another act of resistance, is learning what's going on. Now, if you got to a point where you are just incapable of taking in any more information, by all means, shut it off. You need to take care of you first. But we are no good if we just turn around and say, oh, it doesn't bother me. I'm not going to be affected by it. We're only as strong as our unity provides us. We don't want to be that weak link, because some of us, especially those of us who are more privileged, those who could walk away, we're the ones that have even more responsibility to step up and try to make this better for everybody involved. Then there's Jesus goes into the story of the log and the speck. This one is a goodie and an oldie. Don't obsess about the speck in another person's eye. Deal with the log in yours. Rough translation is deal with your own problems, your own bigotry, your own assumptions. Do not look around for fault somewhere else. When you're with a group of people who are resisting, you are not going to agree about everything. And this fells the progressive movement every single time. Looking for perfection, looking for complete agreement on all points. It's not going to happen. There are too many moving parts. Those who want to destroy are big kind of hammers. They're just going through. They're not seeing the natural consequences, which we're seeing in real time too, of their problems, of the destruction they're doing. We who are progressive, who are trying to resist that and keep ourselves working towards the good of all, we cannot keep falling into this trap. It is not up to us to judge who does something better or not. It's not up to us to judge who expresses their action better than us. If we have someone who can only only pray. That's good enough. That is enough. If you are someone who finds it impossible to be part of the boycott because of your own economic situations, that's okay. There are many, many ways to resist. You are not capitulating just because you are not doing what the majority of people are calling for right now. Every little bit is part of the resistance, of subversion, of standing up, of finding your action. Every bit of it. And no one has the right to tell you that you're not doing enough, or you should do it better, or you should do it their way. That is the story of the speck and the log. Don't get caught up in judging each other, because you got your own blinders and you're not even seeing your own limitations. And finally, Jesus talks about building a house, making sure the foundation is secure. This is again going back to keeping us grounded. Know what we're about. Now, the thing is, when you're attacked, it's very evident what we're about. When things are a little more gentle and you're not feeling anything directly or immediately, it's a little easier to get unmoored from all of that, to say, like, are we really overreacting? Is this something we really need to worry about? Are we just kind of being downers and everything will work out in the end? Those are thoughts we will all have as we try to step up. And people 2,000 years ago are trying to resist Roman occupation, no different from who we are today. We might have different characteristics around us, but at our core, we're still human. And it's really easy, in fact, it's expected, to let our guard down, because you can't be in that state all the time. You can't be constantly on guard for what kind of reaction you have to give next. It's exhausting. This is why we do it communally. It's kind of like a choir, if you've ever been part of one, everybody takes a breath at a different time. So the sound is continuous, but everybody's taking the breath they need to keep the melody going. That's what resistance looks like. That everybody needs to be there to help each other. And our solid foundation keeps that there for us. Do not pay lip service is where Jesus ends the sermon on the plains. Do not just say, yeah, whatever, but not actually do it and live it. Because then you're like a house without a solid foundation. And the next time a wind of attraction or threat or whatever comes by, you're going to be blown over. Don't be those people. So here we have in the Sermon on the Plain a lesson that has been taught to us through the years of just suck it up. Don't wait for the next life. Don't worry about justice now. When really the entire thing is about, justice now. We have to work for it together. We have to balance the scales. We have to make sure that no one is getting more than they need. No one is getting less than they deserve. And to look at everybody as part of a community that we're going to build as a whole. It's really, really easy as people of faith to fall back on the whole, it's just too much for us, or the Bible wants us to be peaceful and nice. Well, you know what? There's nothing in the Bible that says just lay down and accept what's going on. That's the only thing that's not there. We have the ability, as little amounts or big amounts, to respond when we are feeling cut off. In our personal lives, we don't have to wait around for the big institutions and the big governments to do their thing. They're going to do them. And they will do them for the benefit of all of us. In the meantime, we as individuals, as people who are just numbers, have our own power to raise up, to respond, to work for change, to support each other, to be community. And if anything is going on around the world right now, while the lines are being drawn, as scary as that may be, its community is being built. If we're only looking for the darkness, going to find it. Absolutely, lots of examples. But as we look around for the good stuff, that's there too. People of faith, people of not faith, people of our culture, people of other cultures, people of our language, people of other languages. We're all building those connections to resist what is not acceptable. And that is where we're going to end with the Sermon on the Plain. Little steps matter. Little things matter. Start with love and prayer and work from there.